NSFW. Sex ed teachers of Reddit. What is the most awkward / cringe-worthy question you've had to answer in your class? I was one of the pupils, but this still sticks out in my mind. Not so much for being a funny question, but for the stupid answer. A boy asked what would happen if a woman put a tampon in the wrong way, so the string didn't come out. All we got was, well, it has to come out somehow. We were left in suspense as the teacher, a nurse, moved on to the next question. Was it some medical emergency or not? I guess the idea of telling 10-year-old boys about girls putting anything besides penises and tampons into vaginas deviated too far from what was appropriate. We weren't meant to know that fingers could go up there yet for any reason. There was a similar question in my sex ed class. The teacher told us to just use tongs to get it out. Like those huge salad tongs. Not a teacher, but heard two amazing questions. 5th grade sex ed. Student: why does my mom scream during sex? Teacher: she's having fun. 10th grade safe sex education. Female student: if you're having anal sex and the guy comes inside you and then you fart, does it blow bubbles? Teacher: next question. She's having fun LMAO. She's having fun. 15 kids in the class are now thinking, oh, well, I want to have fun too. I teach 5th grade. This is the time for the big talk in Indiana. I was roughly about 7 months pregnant. I was unmarried but engaged. My fiancé was a pretty active participant in my classroom, so all the kids knew him. He came on the field trip due to not having a male teacher available to go to supervise the boys. In Indiana, we still teach abstinence only. In the middle of the lesson, the instructor basically tells the kids that conception takes place after sex, which can only happen after marriage. 30 seconds later, eyes are on me, and a hand shoots up. One of my fabulous tiny humans blurts out, "That can't be true. Mrs. I isn't married and she is pregnant right now. How did that happen then?" Exclamation mark. Question mark. I'm pretty sure the instructor would have killed me in that moment had she been able to. And this was my TED talk on how I ruined the abstinence education by being pregnant and unmarried. Edit. Thanks for my first gold and platinum. I have no idea what it means, but I'm glad that people enjoyed the hilarity that is my teacher life. What is abstinence education and why? We don't have that where I come from. Essentially, in Indiana, we cannot discuss birth control in any way with students. We are told to tell them that the only way to fully prevent pregnancy is through abstaining from sex entirely until marriage. It's outdated and archaic and ineffective. Pretty much Indiana in a nutshell. A kid in my class asked what is the stuff that girls orgasm out if males is sperm. Teacher said that girls don't ejaculate. The kid responded, no they do, I've seen it on the internet. Teacher: girls don't ejaculate. Him: maybe with you they don't. Literally had a female teacher say to a group full of us girls at my school, "You should get excited and self-lubricate. If you aren't relaxed and wet, you probably shouldn't be doing it, which means you're with the wrong person, or you're not enjoying it yourself." OMG, I'll never forget a question a girl asked in my sex ed class. Probably 7th grade. Girl: does pee ever come out instead of semen when a man ejaculates? Teacher: no. When a man ejaculates it is only semen. Girl: okay. But what if pee came out instead of semen? Teacher: that's not physically possible, as it's a separate system with urine versus semen. Girl: but what if it happened? Teacher: it can't happen. Girl: but what if it did? Did this girl end up pregnant? Worse, peed in. Not a teacher, but we had noticards and wrote questions anonymously. One asked, if both partners have long pubes, will they get tangled? How do you untangle them? Apostrophe. And honestly, I never thought of that. The sound of opening Velcro. Oh dear God. Once asked the question to a group of year 9 students, what do you do if you want to have sex and you can't find a condom? Student 1, male: surely you can find something in your house! Exclamation mark. Maybe cling film. Student 2, female: yeah. Or maybe tinfoil. Fucking tinfoil. Like a little suit of armor. Did you just say little? Sounds about right. I'm a teacher in year 6, 10 plus 11-year-olds in the UK. It's the first year that children really learn and talk about sex in school. We had arrived at the actual sexual intercourse lesson, where we focus on the science of conception. One boy out his hand up and said that there were, of course, sounding worldly wise ways of having sex without getting pregnant. I nodded approvingly as I thought we were going to start talking about contraception. Yes, he says. You can stick your penis between a woman's breasts and then come on her chest. I suppose he isn't wrong. Hard to get pregnant like that. Took me by surprise though. Bruh, we started in year 3. Always changing, always growing or something like that. By year 6 we were made to watch a lady give birth and some poor lad fainted. Looking back, that primary school was shit all around though, so not surprised. No need to mention the incident _ Yeah, I've had a few fainters, to be fair. The video is pretty hardcore. It's probably the same one still, the BBC one. I asked the teacher how the sperm got into a woman, and if she had to drink it from a cup to get pregnant. I have an anecdote for this. Back when I was a senior in high school, there was a big fuss happening in the school because apparently there were 2 freshman students that decided to be a little naughty during class while the lights were out for a movie or something. Now, the method of naughtiness was either a good old handy or a proper BJ, depending on who you heard the story from. Normally, no one would have known about this even happening, because apparently no one in the class actually saw it happen. The whole school only found out after the girl on the giving end of this special favor told her mother she thought she was pregnant because she swallowed little dudes. Mom naturally freaked out and went straight to the principal, and it somehow got around to the rest of the school after that. I always assumed that a student aide in the office heard the story and spread it around the school. The story going around school coincided perfectly with that year's yearbooks being circulated. So within a couple hours everyone in the school knew exactly who it was. Useful anecdote. Any chance you could explain how the yearbook being delivered identified the students? My best guess is that it's a big school and names were spread, so find the names sort of thing. Am I right? One of my favorite moments from my high school days. We had health as part of our pet class, and they always got the pet teachers to teach it. And of course 1 week of it was sex edition. We had this dumb football coach who basically read us the textbook for a week, rather than actually deal with the subject. Not really because of any squeamishness, but mostly because it wasn't related to football. And that's all he cared about. I didn't know it was possible to make sex boring until I sat through that week of school. All of us were dozing off or just daydreaming. But the last day, someone raised their hand and said, "Hey coach, how do you have sex? What's the process?" Obviously, they were messing with the guy. Close bracket. The coach said, okay. So you got a donut and a banana. And goes on to tell us about how that would work. It was so bizarre. Don't have sex, because you will get pregnant and die. Don't have sex in the missionary position. Don't have sex standing up. Just don't do it. Okay. Promise? Okay. Now everybody take some rubbers. At your age, you're going to have a lot of urges. You're going to want to take off your clothes and touch each other. But if you do touch each other, you will get chlamydia and die. And this was my Catholic school sex ed, followed by 15 photos of infected vaginas and one darn. Boy kid asked what if it gets stuck? Apostrophe. Well, one time my friend's mom had a friend who had braces and was giving her husband a blow. Ended up having to go to the hospital to get his foreskin unattached from her braces. Edit. For those asking, I can't remember if she actually went to the hospital or not, but I know they called an ambulance. They then used tweezers and a little bit of that numbing stuff to get his dick off of her braces. I missed 5 seconds ago when I hadn't read that. During our sex education in the early 90s, which amounted to 1 hour of dividing the boys and girls of each grade, taking them into their respective classrooms, and going over very broad topics, we were allowed to anonymously ask additional questions we had by writing them on a flashcard and passing them to the front. I asked what would happen if a boy peed inside a girl. I watched as my flashcard was silently read by the teacher, then unceremoniously thrown away without being answered. To this day, I still don't know. Madonna has entered the chat. Why do you know that someone has peed inside of Madonna? Ha. An nun taught us sex ed. One of the lads asks her if when you stick it in, do you just hold it there, or do you wiggle it, or what? She turned red and informed him it was an inappropriate question. So what's the real answer? Asking for a friend. Stick it in and maintain eye contact for as long as possible. My daughter is a high school health teacher. When I told her there's a Reddit question directed at her, she gave me these. 1. Why do I feel happy in my pants when I see a girl? 2. Is it true that a guy's balls will explode if he doesn't come? Most common question. Can you get pregnant from anal sex? Behold the vast spectrum of knowledge and ignorance among middle schoolers. Her students are high schoolers. But yeah, she told me she has a list somewhere of those kinds of questions. Had a classmate ask if he could use a water balloon as a condom. The point of a water balloon is to break and spill its contents. That is the exact opposite of the point of a condom. Next question. 1 year, I went to Pride wearing a bikini that I had sewed many condoms onto with fishing line. It was pretty sunny out, so you could clearly see the fishing line holding the condoms onto my outfit. This young couple comes up to me, lightly tugs on one of the condoms, and says, "Can we have this one?" They were giving away free condoms pretty much everywhere you looked. So I said, "Oh, you probably don't want it." I sewed it on. They looked confused and said, "So?" Not a sex ed teacher, but a 7th grade classroom teacher. I had one boy ask me, "Mr. XXXX, you know boobs, right?" As he cupped his hands in front of his chest. I nodded. "I'm sorry, I know this is a bad word," he said, "but I don't know any other way to say it. Are boobs full of cum? Edit. Thank you for the awards. I don't deserve them. My ill-informed student does. That shit was hysterical. You know boobs, right? No. What are those? Beginning of a porno. Not a teacher, but in grade 7 we had a box where you could anonymously submit questions. 1 or 2 would be read at the end of class each day. My teacher pulled a question that read, "What are anal beads?" The whole class burst out laugh, including our teacher, and he just kinda threw away the piece of paper and said that we all clearly knew what anal beads were, but just in case they are sex toys. We were very promptly dismissed after that. I had a classmate who got a 0 on a health assignment because he wrote anal beads on his paper, like as an answer to a question, or just on the side of the paper. Somebody asked how he could get an orgasm. Simple. Go to the orgasm store. 1 orgasm please. That'll be $25. Oh man. You're paying way too much for your orgasms. Hoss your orgasm guy. So I teach high school biology and there is a sex ed unit. The public school district I teach in is super conservative. So I did my lesson. No one asked questions. One boy came up to me and said he was uncut and he had some white stuff that smelled and what could he do to get rid of it. So I told him what it was, smegma, and he needed to ask his parents that procedure. Props for being straight up about it. Thanks, I try to be as honest as I can be with students. I teach 11 to 13-year-olds, all subjects. I was explaining the functions of spontaneous erection to a group of 40 12-year-old boys. As you develop, and even into your adulthood, you will sometimes develop an erection at times that seem inappropriate. Just know that it's normal, and while it can be embarrassing, it does not necessarily mean that you are sexually attracted to anything or anyone at that time. Boy in the front row with his hand up, I have an erection right now. Is that normal? Edit. Thanks for my first gold anonymous redditor. I'm casual as all hell, so I have no idea what any of it means, but I appreciate the gesture. Either he was ignorantly telling the truth or the funniest kid out of a group of 40. He was a really simple and sweet kid. I honestly think he had an erection and just spoke about the first thing that came up. Sorry about the pun. like everyone else here commenting. Not a teacher, but took sex ed once in middle school. A boy in our class during the Ask an Anonymous question part of the lecture asked what size dildo the teacher uses. She didn't read the question out loud, but scolded the class for asking inappropriate questions. I only knew what was on the card because the boy who wrote it told his friends and they were all dying of laughter about it. Also, the teacher's son was in our class, and among that friend group, he wasn't laughing. Love a twist ending. Not a sex ed teacher, but when I was in health we had a younger and fairly attractive female teacher. One of the guys in my class thought it would be funny to ask her favorite flavor of condom. She just smiled and said strawberry. None of us expected it. I'm not sure if the guy creamed himself from the mental image or wanted to die from embarrassment. But it was a great class. Duck in power move. Assessing dominance. 100% operation complete. We had a girl in our class ask our science teacher when did she lose her virginity. She answered when I first had sex. Excellent answer. I typically answer this question by saying when I was much older than you are and when it was the right time for me. Everyone should wait until it's right for them, and that's a personal decision everyone is entitled to make for themselves. Apostrophe. Truth is, I lost my virginity at 13, which is way too ducking young. So I can't tell the kids I teach that. I don't like lying to them, but I can't tell them the truth because it will be turned around to, well, Mr. Hyper Drunk had sex at 13. So it's okay for me to have sex at 13 feet, even if I explicitly say that it's too young for anyone. Not a teacher, but way back in grade 6 we had sex ed and the teacher had us write down questions on paper one day. She told us not to put our names because the next day we will be drawing the questions out of a hat to read aloud and then the teacher would answer them. So, the next day, and my turn comes up to draw a question. I pull the paper out of the hat and begin reading. Can women masturbate with a pillow between their legs? Signed, a female classmate's name. Whoops. Shouldn't have read that part. We had a teacher do the same thing. The teacher read the questions. She goes, what is a chilly willy? She hems and haws. One kid raises his hand and goes, it's when your GF chews on crushed ice then gives you head. And that was my question, thanks. I'm 25 and I didn't even know that. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.